Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. In today's special episode, we sat down with John Mills, retired colonel, former director of cybersecurity at the Defense Department, senior fellow with the Center for Security Policy, and part of the Spectrum Consulting Group. We also hear from Casey Fleming, CEO of BlackOps Partners Corp. They touch on the growing importance of the cyber realm in modern warfare, what China might be learning from Russia's invasion of Ukraine, and what this means for Taiwan and the U.S. going forward. Let's dive in. Thank you so much for joining us today. Great to have you on the show.
Great to be here.
Thank you, Tiffany. An honor to be with you again.
So let's begin with the Russian war on Ukraine. The last time in about 2015, almost half of Ukraine's power grids were taken off. But this time, we're not seeing quite so much in the cyber realm. So why is that?
What you're seeing is it's more calculating and streamlined into support the combat piece of it, or the conventional warfare piece. Before, since there wasn't conventional war enacted in Ukraine, you saw much more of a widespread target across Ukraine, inserting malware, taking information from an espionage perspective, and so on. So now it's much more targeted as opposed to what it was in the past. So it supports the ground invasion. That's what you're seeing.
How do you see cyber kind of changing the way wars are fought?
Well, we learned a lot in 2007 when the Russians really brought Estonia, totally shut down Estonia, a small Baltic country. We learned a lot from that. I actually was involved in some of the response and remediation, and our cyber capabilities and plans and policies were very, underdeveloped at that time. We learned a lot. And then the following year, 2008, where Russia used it against Georgia, but also combined actual kinetic military assault. So they combined bombs with cyber and actually invading a country with cyber. So that was 2007, 2008. Now roll the camera forward to today in the Ukraine. I just like to be transparent about this topic, even though I have a lot of this experience. Part of the story so far has been the Russian cyber presence is not really quite what, in some ways, it's made out to it will be or have been, and it's puzzling and curious.
And so it seems in the cyber realm, there is kind of a push and maybe more disinformation and misinformation. So could it be that the resources are being put there instead of maybe attacking infrastructure?
Well, there are different types of resources. So you've got the technical resources, and then you've got the, the posting resources, right? So they're kind of different. But absolutely, the disinformation has absolutely reached a crescendo level from coming out of both Russia and China, CCP, in support of Russia, as they are aligned against the United States, as well as Iran and North Korea, the four of them. So the disinformation piece, again, it's at an extremely high level to support the ground invasion and to keep the Russian people in the dark, as well as the rest of the world as much as they can keep it in the dark from a narrative position.
And so, John, you've had decades of working in national security, going back to the Cold War, and a lot of that has also been in cyber. So in all these different wars that you've covered, how do you see cyber changing through them?
Well, Desert Storm was really, in many ways, the peak or the pinnacle, and we're talking about 91. Now, last century here, sounds a long time ago, and it is. We saw the net-centric capabilities, kind of a term from that era, the way the U.S. managed and marshaled its information technology as giving us dominance, and it did. And the Russians and the Chinese watched Desert Storm extremely closely. They studied it and still study it to this day in detail. In fact, Putin essentially, I was not in the room with Putin and Xi, but I can pretty well, as the staffs, and then there actually was face-to-face with Putin and Xi. Essentially, the Russians made a promise to deliver Ukraine in 72 hours based on their perception of their implementation of their Desert Storm. That's not worked out very well at all so far. I don't think they've been able to match our focused information capabilities. I think it's really not gone well for them in the cyber world. Again, Russia did achieve some great cyber success with Estonia, with Georgia. There's a nexus between Russian nation state and Russian organized crime. Sometimes it's very hard to tell the difference. But so far, the Russians have not exhibited a dominating cyber capability. So it has had great effect. Desert Storm. It has the Russians have exhibited cyber capability, but for some reason so far, they've really not been able to generate and project cyber capabilities to dominate. That's a very interesting part of the story. I mean, and we can talk more about speculating why, but there's some good, with reasoned experience and analysis, we can kind of talk about that.
And Casey, you mentioned how Beijing is also learning and pushing this disinformation thing, but what else are they maybe learning from this Russian war in Ukraine?
Well, they're learning both, well, a lot of different things. But first, they're learning the ground invasion piece of it, why it's not working, and things that they may want to do differently. So this is really a trial balloon by Xi and the CCP to see really how the adversary is going to respond, namely Ukraine, and in China's case, it would be Taiwan, but then also the way NATO supports, the U.S. supports, and all the way down to the financial methods of the restrictions there, the sanctions. So they're actually studying this so they can be much more successful with a Taiwan invasion and other spread invasions after Taiwan. So it's really a trial balloon. It's a study from not just the conventional piece on where the failures are, but also the cyber piece on what's working and what they can do better, as well as the narrative and the disinformation.
And so going forward, Casey, how would we maybe see this play out, especially in the cyber realm in terms of, say, Taiwan?
You can see actually much worse. The Chinese Communist Party and their assets, namely the PLA, are actually even better than the Russians. The Russians have gotten pretty good over the past several years, but the Chinese Communist Party is really, really good. At least they're the managers or the controllers of the PLA, and that's who's doing the work. So what you can expect is much more of an infrastructure hit to Taiwan than Ukraine has seen. So you're going to look at much more of an advanced type of action than what Russia did with Ukraine. So really hitting the infrastructure really hard, say in the weeks preceding an advance or the conventional advance with soldiers and the conventional warfare.
Well, I'll be honest. I think the attack is going on right now through the Solomon Islands. And in an Epoch Times article back in December, I postulated, and and I'm not patting myself on the back. Well, I guess I am patting myself on the back. I said, look at what's going on in the Solomon Islands. This is a Sun Tzuian amphibious invasion where they are essentially using Belt and Road, buying off Manasseh Sogavare, the prime minister of the Solomon Islands. I mean, he's corrupt. Now, and he just came out yesterday and said the AUKUS deal, that's where the U.S., the UK, and Australia would give the capabilities, the 12 nuclear submarines to Australia. Huge, huge. That was a Trump plan. That was a Trump plan that the Biden administration has run with. Jim Miller is running that for the Biden administration. Actually, he's pretty good. But now Sogavare said, nuclear pollution will destroy the oceans of the South Pacific. Well, why did he say that? I mean, that didn't come out of thin air. China clearly handed Sogavare the talking points and said, hey, Prime Minister, now that we paid you and your family and protected you from your population that doesn't like you, say this and start using this fake talking point about nuclear pollution. Sogavare wouldn't know nuclear pollution if he's worried about pollution, the biggest polluter of the oceans in the world is China. So if he's worried about pollution all of a sudden, he should be looking at the same people who just handed him a lot of money.
That's all for today's China in Focus on YouTube. We're now sharing a shortened version of our program on YouTube. That's after being demonetized for a year. Full episodes can be watched on our partner platform, Epoch TV. To sign up for a 14-day free trial, please click the link down below. Thanks for watching China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer, and see you tomorrow.